Good afternoon and happy Friday, everybody. I hope everybody's have had a great week, and that everybody's looking to a good fun weekend. Hopefully, with a lot of cigars, a lot of sales, and a lot of fun involved, and a lot of sunshine. I'm Scott Pierce, PCA Executive Director, and today I'm joined with Josh Aversky, our Federal Government Affairs Director here, who we're going to have a good conversation today and talk about a lot of things that have been happening. Just because in the midst of the shutdowns and pandemics and everything else that's been going on, unfortunately, all the crusaders against tobacco and legislation and other things like that have continued to go on. So just wanted to provide everybody a high-level overview about what has been going on in government affairs, stemming from everything from the state issues that we have been attacking, as well as some of the federal issues, and as they are moving along, because we know there are a lot of different state tax issues that are in play, some potential bans that are in play, and some other things that are kind of going on there. And so I wanted to give everybody some insights, both into kind of what some of those issues that we're looking at the states, also to remind folks, if there's anything that comes up in your state, reach out to us. We can always coordinate and do other things. We are consistently monitoring everything that goes on in state legislators and sessions. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to Josh, who will drive the program agenda for today. And so, Josh.
Yes, thanks, Scott. I mean, it certainly was a very busy week. We had, I think, of the past 2 or 3 months, this has been the most impactful week that we've had, just across the board, from state legislatures to things going on with the FDA, with the administration, with campaigns, with town hall meetings. There's a lot of activity going on, and we certainly have a lot of momentum. And I think it's been helpful making a lot of the different announcements and releases that a lot of PCA members have read, have provided feedback. I have really enjoyed over the past few months that feedback loop, and having our members weigh in and saying, hey, we need something in this area or that area, or this is going on in my town. How can you help here? So we're getting a lot of user-generated government affairs issues that we're attacking and putting the appropriate resources to. This week it started off, we had a great town hall with Virginia retailers, with Representative Ben Klein. This was I believe our 8th or 9th town hall of the year. We're continuing that. It's been a fantastic program where our members can directly engage with members of Congress in their state, in their district, as well as U.S. senators. We've had quite a few of those as well. So, our next one will be with Representative Tom Emmer in July, who's also the head of the National Republican Congressional Committee. So we'll get some elections insights in there as well, of what November will look like. But that was the first exciting thing.
Yeah. So real quick on those, I had some members ask some questions about that and what they're supposed to kind of be deriving from this and the benefit and this and that and the other. So the direct member benefit here is an opportunity to engage with a representative, especially a U.S. congressman or senator. The second part of this is our ultimate agenda is to continue to push the premium cigar legislative policy agenda, which is exemption and protection for the premium cigar industry against legislation that has always been really geared towards cigarettes and then vaping devices. So one of the things that these town halls really allow us to do is it allows us to connect with the representative, especially now in the COVID era, where normally it would be 1 or 2 of us from the association that would be representing within the halls of the Capitol. We often do fly-ins, for example. And with fly-ins, we're taking 3, 4 people that go in and are able to sit down, and we generally like to line them up with those where we're constituents. And so in this instance, where our congressmen and senators are now more open to these formats, digitally speaking and virtually speaking, we can get 6, 7, 8 different retailers like we had with Virginia that are all there within their districts, represent a lot of jobs, represent a lot of taxes, represent a pretty large consortium and group there. So that amplifies our presence. And so in this instance with Ben Klein's a good supporter. But while we're on there, he also recognized that there was a Republican member that he knows that has not signed on to our exemption bill, for example. And so when the congressman comes in and sees, well, look, there's nearly there's 6, 7 stores that are represented, plus Scott Regina, who's on our board, who is also represented, plus us, and talking about these issues. Number one, he sees the importance that it relates to him for all of his constituents. That's very important. Number two, he also then carries our message forward, not only to help get some of his colleagues onto our exemption bill, but he's also able to continue to exert pressure with the right message to the administration, namely the FDA. So this is where the ultimate end goal is for us to continue to keep our agenda front of mind, because again, we are small and we are niche, but the more we can do things like this, it amplifies our voice and carries our message even farther than it would otherwise if we just sat on the sidelines waiting for these guys to come up with these ideas themselves, which we know that they won't. And then we will be at the mercy of the FDA. So by continuing to keep this up with these representatives, it allows us to continue to have those representatives to carry our message to folks like the FDA, because they're the ones that have oversight over the FDA.
Well, and in addition to that, Scott, I think it's important that, we're in a relationship business when it comes to advocacy, when it comes to politics, when it comes to Congress. And a lot of times members of Congress derive their decisions from the input of constituents, key stakeholders there. So, and I've mentioned this on previous broadcasts, I'm teeing up legislation. I am providing information on a large scale day to day. Last year, we did 350 congressional visits. But in order to get some of these offices across the finish line, in order to sign on to bills or write letters to the FDA or write letters to the White House, they need constituents to justify their actions. And that's where, our members come in. And these half-hour sessions, if you've taken part in them, there's facilitated questions, there's an agenda, and there's several policy asks that are in there. If you participate in that half-hour session, you're going to get all of the main points of what the premium cigar industry's agenda is over the course of that time frame, and really be an ambassador, within Congress to get other members involved to get that same way of thinking. We saw a dividend pay off with having those relationships in Pennsylvania recently. One of the other agenda items that we wanted to cover on this broadcast and update, we assisted members of Congress in sending a letter to the White House, to the president, encouraging regulatory relief for premium cigars. The Florida delegation 2 weeks ago sent a letter. This week, the Pennsylvania delegation sent a letter. And the big point of this, and where it ties together, is that there was one member of Congress of the Republican delegation that was not on this letter as a signatory. And we were able to get members of PCA within that member's district to call the appropriate staff to engage and say, this is something that you need to do. And we now are able to say that the entire Republican Pennsylvania delegation was a signatory to that letter that went to the president. So that's a direct impact of having those relationships there. And I would say we need to have continuous outreach. If anyone that's watching this or is watching in the future has a relationship with a congressional staffer or members of Congress, we want to leverage them. We want to work with you. We want to provide you the talking points and all of the materials that you need to be confident in making the outreach and making the ask on behalf of the industry. So we'll provide all the tools to help you do that, but understand we have a small staff. We're working tirelessly across agencies, across Congress, across state legislatures to multiply. The multiplier effect of the impact is really you. So that's where we need that engagement. And this town hall series has been very successful. I look forward to having our Minnesota retailers on with Representative Emmer. We're looking at Texas and North Carolina as other areas for a future town hall. But my plan is to have at least one town hall every month up until November to really engage with members of Congress.
And again, this is a way, look, advocacy, government affairs, particularly the federal level, is a slow burn, right? You don't just light a match, throw it in your fireplace, and expect to have a roaring fire every time you come home. You have to tend to this thing. You always have to make sure that you're adding new logs, et cetera. And if we don't, our fire will die out. And especially because we are a smaller industry and a niche industry, we have to be continuously engaging the legislators at all levels. And so therefore, one of the benefits that this does provide for our members is it also gives you direct access. So if there are questions that you want to be able to ask the legislator, you can ask them in these town halls. And some of them have been a little bit more direct and frank than others because they may not necessarily be supporters of our issues. And others, like with Ben Klein, very much a big supporter and knows all about it. He enjoys cigars himself. And so just checking in, and also some asks about, again, putting some more pressures on the agency and things like that.
Yeah, and if you're interested and want to get involved in this level, this is higher level. It's not, sending a simple letter to Congress from a form message that, we do those grassroots alerts, and those are, important. But if you want to elevate your level of participation and be even more impactful, reach out. I'm happy to set up a meeting with whoever your elected official is, whether they're a supporter or not. We can at least make the ask. There are very few members of Congress, especially during an election cycle, that will not meet with a key constituent that represents a small business block, especially given the fact that Premium Cigar PCA members are usually the lounges and the cigar bars where politics is often discussed. And you have people from all different walks of life and political persuasion. So it's important. We have a lot of value and we have a lot of power in doing that. And that's why this initiative is going to continue and expand further. Moving on, one of the other releases that we made this week, and then I'll get to our most important topic, but we released today, this morning, an American consumer, supporting American consumers policy statement about ways that our retail stores, as well as manufacturers and consumers, can benefit from tax incentives. We previewed this in our economic blueprint for recovery in response to COVID. And one of the items that was in there that was in the blueprint and carried over to this policy statement that was released today is business tax deductions on entertainment expenses. So if you are a small business owner and you want to go to a cigar lounge for your business meeting, that meal, those cigars are tax deductible to your business. That is something that we've been on the record, that we've sent to several congressional offices advocating that position. Where we went further today in our statement, it was two parts. Extension of tax deadlines so that people have more money in their pockets for a longer period of time where they can generate more spending activity. And then secondly, and I think the most important piece of what was released today, the individual tax credit. So a lot of folks in the travel and tourism industry have been working with members across the aisle to get some type of tax credit that will bolster people's spending habits for hotels, for air travel, train travel, you name it. And there's a bill that was introduced by Senator McSally out of Arizona that would provide individuals a $4,000 tax deduction, joint filers an $8,000 deduction for travel expenses and entertainment expenses. And as we read and interpret the language of this legislation, this would also be applicable to our industry as well under that entertainment category. And we're also, pushing that message. If you're traveling to Florida, if you're traveling to different places that have, these great robust cigar lounges that have been around for 100 years, or even retail stores, there is a tourism element to the premium cigar industry, that people travel. And it's like your specialty coffee shops, your specialty restaurants. You research ahead of time. I want to check out this cigar spot in New Orleans. I want to check out this cigar spot in Atlanta, Georgia. So we want to make sure that our voice is going to be involved in that debate as well. Scott, I don't know if you have anything to add on that statement that we released today.
No. Again, we're constantly reviewing ways in which we can advocate for the entirety of the industry. We understand that consumers are going to. It's very important, right? The consumers have the ability to continue to enjoy premium cigars and enjoy them in the best different ways in which consumers do love to experience the premium cigar industry. So Josh did a terrific job in being able to tackle that issue and being able to put that policy statement together. And so, one of the ways that we amplify our voice is finding allies on, particularly on issues that we can share in, whether it's been, with, the payment protection plan, or whether it's been with other groups, other retail groups or others for payment processing services and things like that, and those types of taxes, other employment laws. It's always good for us. And one of the things that we've tackled with Josh and with his leadership and the way that we've been able to approach this has been, how do we get seats at these tables? Because if we're not at these tables, then it's very likely that we'll be on the menu. And the more and more that we've been at these tables, the more and more people can see the value that we bring and the perspective that we bring. And so it's been good, and it's been resonating, and it's been paying off some dividends for us. And so we expect the same thing to happen here with this policy statement and us being able to align with the travel industry.
Yeah, and I think, it's a testament. Our team really has been working over the past few months to change the narrative from let's constantly be on the defense and monitor, issues that arise, to put informative statements, so that, we're not always on the defensive and slowly losing ground on things. We're putting things that will actually help the industry as a whole, retailer first, but also manufacturer as well as consumer benefit from a lot of the enactments that policymakers are making across, the federal government as well as states and localities. In the context of some of the state updates, before I get into our FDA update, we've been working in Tennessee and Georgia. The Georgia folks, the Georgia Premium Cigar Association, I have to give a shout out to them. They have been very vocal. They've been very, on top of what has been going on in the state legislature, and have been working with PCA as well as Cigar Rights of America. And it has been a cooperative relationship. I hope that other state associations will utilize that model of, like, we can provide the action alerts, we can provide the resources, we can communicate it to our network and our audience, the information. But we've really been leveraging and working with that state association based off of their expertise in the area, in their own state, and the relationships that they have. Similar with one of our consultants in Michigan, Dave Jessup. He's been doing a fantastic job in Michigan, trying to protect the tax cap. And that was one of the first tax caps that was enacted. So that's something that we're monitoring and we're engaging on as well. Previously, I think before our last broadcast, our last federal update, or government affairs update, we did also engage in opposing a tax in Tennessee. We, across the board, oppose tax increases for premium cigars. This is not the time to be taxing small businesses. This is the time of recovery. And that message we're going to continue to hammer home. Our membership, our elected officials will get sick of me saying that, but there's no way that we're going to be on record or in any way supporting tax increases on premium cigars. That's non-negotiable at this point.
Yeah. And straight to your point, and this is kind of one of the things that we know is coming, and this is why we are being as diligent as we possibly can with the limited resources that we do have on monitoring everything that is coming up in the states as it relates to the tax increases. We know that states are very much across the board suffering for their budgets. And so they're going to try to look for ways in which they can recoup that. And the last thing that we want to do is to be, the piggy bank that continue to try to break open. And it doesn't work that way. You cannot tax your way into prosperity. We know that. They're not going to tax their way out of this. And we are such a niche industry that there's no amount of tax they would ever be able to put on premium cigars, at which point they would be able to, get this money back that they're needing to get back. And at a certain point, we all know this, you're going to tax beyond a threshold that's going to make it beneficial. And then you're going to start that money's going to start going down because of it. We've got some great case studies. We've got some great states out there that have been able to do it. Josh mentioned the tax cap in Michigan. We've had other places that have done the same thing where they realize actually more revenue by doing it. For some folks, it does seem counterintuitive, but basic pricing model situation here that we've been trying to educate people on. And so we're seeing some success, but where this really comes into effect is the partnership that Josh made mention of with Georgia. for us to connect with and work in tandem with you all at that local level gives us the greatest opportunity for success. So again, we are being extra diligent in scouring everything that's coming out of the states right now for these types of things. However, it will take a coordinated effort, teamwork between us and local folks at the state level in order to combat this in any meaningful way.
Yeah, I think as it relates to states, look to us as an information warehouse. We're going to get information out there,
Yeah.
but we definitely need to have a lot of folks in the industry. Consumers, retailers, manufacturers, our cigar press, cigar media, constantly being vigilant about the issues that are coming up. And feel free to send it to us. And if you have a question or need some clarification, we'll do the research. I'm looking at the chat box in the comments. I'm seeing a lot of stuff about some of the flavored tobacco bans and things like that. We are definitely, this is something that is on our radar right now, specifically the characterizing flavors language. When there's notes of chocolate, notes of leather, how
spice, pepper,
how premium cigars are described. We're talking about premium cigars that don't have any flavor additives but are characterized as such. Maybe it's in a packaging description or a shelf talker or things like that. We've had several inquiries about that. I talked to some of the folks on our state team earlier this week, and Massachusetts right now, that you can't have any of that language. We're looking at and exploring a lot of different avenues to attack this, to oppose this from the legislative, regulatory, and also exploring legal options as well. There are a lot of localities in California that have similar things. It's also being considered at the state level as it relates to premium cigars. Our full court press is preserving the ability to describe premium cigars and have that free speech. If one of our cigar press describes and does a review on a premium cigar product that's non-flavored but makes those description, those characterizing notes, they should be able to make that description. And that's the position that we're advocating for, and we'll continue to fight.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing, right? If I'm going to be describing when I drink a bourbon and how those different notes are hitting me, or even a wine, for example, again, it does. A, I have the freedom of expression to be able to describe that. B, it does not mean that I'm trying to get underage kids to start drinking bourbon or wine because I'm describing it to somebody in the way that it's hitting my palate. And we
definitely agree on pipe tobacco as well. That's very similar. I think a lot of times we are fighting the fight on a lot of premium cigar issues, and that's top of mind. But in a lot of the pieces of legislation and the regulation, it's also applicable to pipe tobacco. We've been active on tax rates of pipe tobacco this year on several occasions. But that is something that I do want to clarify, and I see in the comments there that we are also advocating for pipe tobacco.
And Chris, we are engaged in California, to your point on that bill that's coming through, or especially it's going to kind of reach its apex over the next couple of months. So we're actively engaged on that as well.
Our final topic, and I think it was really important. Scott and I had the opportunity to listen in. Our leadership, John Anderson and Greg Zimmerman, did a fantastic presentation earlier this week with the Food and Drug Administration. There were over a dozen participants from different components of the FDA, including the Center for Tobacco Products, Office of Stakeholder Relations and Regulatory Affairs. And it was a listening session that we had planned going all the way back to December, where we went to the FDA headquarters and had a briefing with their CTP staff and stakeholder relations. We were able to put this together in cooperation with CRA, as well as the Boutique Cigar Association and the J.C. Newman Company. And we were able to present an hour-long presentation, soup to nuts of everything that's wrong with substantial equivalence and pre-market review, as well as the distinctiveness of premium cigars versus all other tobacco products, and made the reasoning not only for the economic reasons. A lot of folks know by now of me being in this role, I always use the economic arguments. That's the one that resonates the most on Capitol Hill with lawmakers. But when we're talking with agencies such as the FDA, we're also making the health reasons and the rationale and scarcity of resources that the agency possesses in our rationale of advocating for, first and foremost, exemption, but if not exemption, a streamlined process that provides a clear path for premium cigars to come to market. If you've seen any of the materials that we've produced in the past few months, we're talking about fostering and growing the premium cigar industry, the sale of legal products to legal adults. We have a negligible youth access issue that we're proud of, and that's a testament to our PCA retail members that take strict age verification procedures to heart in all of their stores. And that's something we pride ourselves upon. The infrequent usage, all of those arguments were made in this listening session, and we had a compelling session overall. We'll continue to follow up, and that's when I say, we have the momentum right now. We just need to sustain this pressure.
Yeah, and one of the things, it's a lot of fun to sit there and listen to George Padron and Carlito Fuente talk about the artistry and the history of their families and everything, and then juxtapose that with somebody like Dr. Gabby Caffey coming in from the Boutique Cigar Association talking about new entrants and newcomers into this, but just the artistry and the distinct nature by which these products are handcrafted. And that already lays bare the difference between that and other tobacco products and how they are made. The other part here is that kind of Josh talked about. There's the economic impact, and sure, that does resonate on Capitol Hill. But when we're looking at regulatory agencies generally have a goal or an end success measure in mind when they're looking at it. And the stated goal right there for the Center for Tobacco Products and everything that exists with the Tobacco Control Act is to reduce youth access to nicotine and to nicotine products. And so when we look at premium cigars, you look at the very nature of the way that they're created, the very nature that they are used, and you understand that running through any of these proposed solutions as far as the regulations that are there will not ever accomplish or make any kind of impact on youth usage in tobacco, because youths do not. I feel like Joe Pesci right now. The youths don't smoke cigars. We know that. We have verifiable data, multiple levels from the NIH and the FDA and other medical journals that have shown not only that there is no deleterious health outcome from average premium cigar users, but there's no youth access. And so here's where the message really needs to start resonating. And when we kind of get down to this and how we put it out there, nothing that they will destroy an industry for no reason, and they will not realize any growth in their objective of abating any kind of youth access to tobacco or nicotine. And so it's those 2 points together. And when you look at the totality of the premium cigar industry, it is clear. You get the sense that they understand that there is a difference of it. And so that it comes down to ultimately you're lighting a tobacco leaf on fire, and where that really kind of comes out to. So that's what we're looking at. We're looking at public health outcomes when it comes to the agency. So for those that might be wondering, well, it's clear, right? We're very different. That's true. Everybody understands that the way that it's made is different. And it's clear that it's kind of an economic impact. But I think ultimately, at the end of the day, they're looking at a public health outcome. And is there any difference in public health outcomes regardless of anything else other than the fact that you're lighting a tobacco leaf on fire or heating it or any of those other ways? And they also basically kind of lump in heating up some sort of liquid solution that has nicotine in it to the same thing as lighting a tobacco leaf on fire. For them, it's all the same. They're looking at public health outcomes. And so it's incumbent upon us to continue that message forward, that they will not have any serious effect on any kind of public health outcomes they're looking to achieve by trying to do what they're going to do to the premium cigar industry.
And the fact of the matter remains, in January, this FDA released a statement that affirmed our arguments that premium cigars are the lowest enforcement priority of the agency because we don't have that issue. And that should be compelling in itself. And it is an absurd process that would take out 80% of the industry. So,
Yeah.
I think that message was well received, and the administration and the White House, and they have been carefully working on this issue now for several months. And the executive orders, the recent executive orders that have nothing to do with tobacco right now, but are deregulatory in nature, all of that is fodder for us that we're able to utilize in our arguments, because again, it ties it health data. We're citing FDA, NIH, New England Journal of Medicine data on the health side of things. The economic side of things, I mean, that's pretty clear cut. Our retail members and manufacturers took a massive hit because of COVID-19. We're still recovering. We cannot have obtrusive regulations take effect later this year, September 9th. That's first and foremost. And secondly, we can't have massive tax increases to these small businesses that are just opening up. Moody's Analytics reported that excise taxes are down 20% in most states. 20%. Well, that means sales of products that are on these excise taxes are down even more in most scenarios. So it is one that we will continue to fight. Expect more releases, more ways to get involved in the next coming weeks and months. But you have any questions, comments, suggestions, concerns, I'll post in the comment box my email address and my phone number. Please feel free to reach out. We are a resource to you. We serve the membership at large, and we would be happy to assist in any of your concerns that come your way.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Josh said, please reach out to us. It's really us working in concert with each other where we're going to be able to see them and realize the most results, particularly at the local levels. And so, while I wish we could clone ourselves 100 times over to be actively engaged in all 50 states as often as possible, that teamwork is going to be essential for us over the next year or so, as we're going to be combating these fires that pop up in each of these states. So please feel free to reach out to us anytime and discuss these things as we move forward with all of our proactive legislative efforts, as well as setting up a solid defensive structure that we know we're going to need. So thank you, everybody. We hope you guys all have fantastic weekends. We hope you guys see as many customers as you are allowed to see this weekend and sell a lot of cigars and pipes, pipe tobacco, accessories, everything else, and enjoy your weekends. And please be safe and be well. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.